All right, come on. Come sit down and tell me honestly what you thought about Trippie Redd's new album. A bunch of Trippie fans are saying how it's horrible and unforgivable, and while the mixing on some of the tracks should have never gotten past the studio,
Rockstar, rap star.
Overall, I'd say the album is like a 6.5, maybe a 7 out of 10. It has a couple really good songs, but whether or not the album is good is up for debate. But what isn't up for debate is that we are about to hit 3,000 subscribers, which is crazy to me. I know I sound like every YouTuber when I say this. Oh, wow, 3,000 subscribers. I never would have thought this would happen. But I mean, everybody says it because it's true. Most people don't start a channel with the intention of garnering a bunch of subscribers. While it's something that's a cool effect of making videos, most people just love making videos and that's why they do it. So yeah, thank you. Anyway, long tangent aside, today we're going to be going over how to make some dark, sinister glow beats in the style of Trippie Redd's new album. I forgot what the album is called. Mansion Music, that's what it's called. In the style of Trippie Redd's new album, Mansion Music. And this is what the beat sounds like. Alright, so let's just jump straight into this. Alright, so if you've watched my last tutorial, you'd know that I've been using Xenology a lot when it comes to glow beats, especially this Biggie Brass preset. I just like how full and anthemic the preset is. As for the first melody, it's stupid simple. I just have a note on every single beat going 1, 2, 3, 4, and the first 3 notes are on C, and the 4th note is on C sharp. If you've watched my tutorials before, you know that it's probably a drinking game when it comes to me saying the words tension notes, and I'm gonna say it again because it's a crucial part of making dark and sinister beats. So tension notes are notes that are 1 note away from each other in the scale, and they are also known as half-step intervals. Using these tension notes does just that. It creates tension. And I found when it comes to making dark yet simple melodies, this is a great starting point. So I'll just get rid of this top portion right here and show you guys what I did. All I did was I highlighted the first pattern, duplicated it, and put it an octave up. Next, I duplicated this one and put it up by 7 semitones. As a general rule of thumb, 7 semitones up from your root note is going to be the 5th of your chord. And I just did this to make the melody a little bit less bland. And then for the second half, all I did was I took this and put it up by an octave. Boom. So with that being said, this is what it sounds like. Alright, so next I laid down this second brass. And if you've watched any of my glow tutorials, you will know that I use this brass all the time. And it's the octave brass from Venexi's 3K drum kit. And I just have this doing a similar thing to the first brass. I have it playing a prolonged version of that tension note pattern. And then for the second half, I double it, give it to the next person, and put it up an octave. So this is what the second brass sounds like. I threw this one in because the first brass was not very impactful, and I wanted this beat to just go absolutely nutty, so I was not pulling any punches. Insert a clip of like Armstrong doing that. Next thing I threw down is a Theramin Lead, and the lead that I used is the Theramax preset, yet again from Xenology. And this is using those 5ths that we mentioned in the first melody. So yet again, all I did was I took the original melody and put it up by 7 semitones. And then I just added in some transition notes towards the end. Next thing I threw down is a bell. Not really much that I need to go over there. And after that, I threw down this string ensemble from Purity, being the octave strings. And this pattern is almost identical to the Theramin Lead from before. Alright, so finally we can go into my favorite portion of this beat, being this metal guitar. I was going to play the guitar live, but I was feeling super lazy, so I just used Ample Metal Eclipse and it came out sounding perfect. While this melody might look a little bit complex, it's toying around with the same principles that we developed before. As you can see down here, we are working with those C and C sharp tension notes. And in these two spots, we are using that +7 semitone melody, or the fifths of the chords. Now, as for the rhythmic pattern, it was kind of an accident the way it came out. At first, I just had this laid down, and then I tried to copy it all over, but I didn't put it in the right spot, so it started sooner than it was supposed to. But I actually really liked how it sounded, so I modified it a bit, and I think that was like the transforming part of this melody. Because if I just kept this first portion and copied it over, I feel like it would have been pretty bland and wouldn't have added a whole lot of energy to the track. So that kind of just shows that sometimes happy little accidents do happen. Shout out Bob Ross. And then yet again, sticking to the theme of throwing things up an octave in the second half, that's exactly what we're doing here. And in the second half, I decided to get a little bit fancy and introduce some strum notes. So this is what the metal guitar sounds like. Alright, so with all of those melodic components thrown together, this is what the complete melody sounds like. And if you want to know how I mix my melodies, you can check out the video in the top left where I go over just that. It's easier that way because I don't like having my videos be longer than like 8 minutes. And if I have to explain how I mix my melodies every single video, it'll go over by like 2 minutes. But if you're good on melody mixing, let's go into the drums. Now the drums in this beat can be found in 3 different places. Most of the drum sounds are from my Hive stash kit, which you can get for free in the link in the description. Both of the snares are from my Armageddon multi-kit, which you can get a free demo of in the link in the description as well. And then I just have a cymbal from the Venexi 3K drum kit yet again. Alright, so the first thing that I laid down is the 808. From this point to this point, it's just a pretty standard 808 pattern following the root notes. But over here is where things get fun. Since this is in the second half of the 808 pattern, I decided to throw some notes up by an octave to stick with the theme of the melody of throwing some notes up by an octave in the second half of the melody pattern. That was much more complicated than it needed to be, but you get the point. And then I also introduced an 808 roll, as well as these 808 spiccato notes. I just have them hit really quickly and then cut off when they're told to. So with that being said, this is what the 808 pattern sounds like. Next, I layered 2 snares. The Messiah snare from my Armageddon multi-kit, and the Gate snare from the same kit. As you can tell, I layered 2 pretty contrasting snares. The first one was a lot more punchy and had a higher timbre, and the second one is at a lower pitch and was a little bit more crunchy. When layering snares, you want there to be a reason you're layering the snares. If you're layering 2 nearly identical snares, there's really not much purpose in doing that, as you could just crank up the original snare. But by combining 2 polar opposites, you'll get a much more full and impactful sound. So the rest of the drums aren't really that important. I'm gonna just try to speed through them. Firstly, I have this accent snare with some rolls at the end. Next, I have this hi-hat pattern from my Quasar MIDI kit. After that, I have an open hat hitting at the same time as some of the 808s. And finally, I have a cymbal playing at the same time as those open hats. So, with all of that together, this is what the drums sound like. As you can tell, the drums are a bit convoluted and there's a lot going on, but simplicity wasn't really my goal for this beat. As more and more complex beats like super traps start to emerge in the underground, artists are starting to be able to rap over what were recently considered non-rappable beats. So maybe the times are changing and simple beats are a thing of the past. Maybe not, but it's still cool to have fun and make some slightly complex beats. So that is going to pretty much cover how to make a dark and sinister glow beat in the style of Trippie Redd's newest album, Mansion Music. Hopefully you enjoyed the tutorial and learned something new. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the comments down below and I will do my best to answer them. Also, consider checking out my Patreon. I post all of the FLPs for all of my beats, including this one. So if you want to study the arrangement, the mixing, what plugins are used, all that kind of stuff, it's right at your fingertips. Also, finally, consider subscribing as I post 2 tutorials every single week. One long one and one short one. Other than that, that's going to be it. Peace.